If you've taken a course in human evolution or, God forbid, had to endure a particularly painful episode of your high school health class, you've probably heard the basic story of human origins. Something like this. Homo sapiens emerged in Africa around 200,000 years ago. Then, about 60,000 years ago, all of us left the continent in a single great migration wave and gradually replaced other archaic humans like the Neanderthals along the way. Over the past decade or so, though, a trove of discoveries in genetics, archaeology, and paleoanthropology has forced scientists to rewrite that narrative. And the new version is far more interesting, revealing a far more complex and interconnected human past than anyone expected. Here's what we know now. Tools that rewrite timelines. One of the biggest recent revisions to the human story comes from archaeological sites like Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge, where researchers recently uncovered a collection of sophisticated bone tools that are about 1.5 million years old. The tools show clear evidence of deliberate craftsmanship, having been carefully shaped by whoever made them from the bones of large animals like hippos and elephants. That level of craftsmanship was once thought to be a hallmark of Homo sapiens. So finding it on bones that are at least 500,000 years older than any anatomically modern human remains suggests that early human relatives like Homo erectus possessed advanced problem-solving skills far earlier than once believed. What that means for our family tree is still up for debate, but it seems clear that our hominin ancestors were much more capable than previously thought. A complex web of ancient encounters. The story of Neanderthal man is also being rewritten, thanks largely to advances in genetics. For most of the 20th century, the prevailing wisdom held that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals had a brief but intense fling somewhere in the Middle East around 60,000 years ago. Recent studies have shown that this wasn't the whole story. Using data from Neanderthal bones found in Spain and Siberia, scientists have determined that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred around 3 separate times during prehistory. The first go-round took place around 200 to 250,000 years ago. Another round of interbreeding occurred around 100 to 120,000 years ago. And a third and final mixing of genes happened around 50-60,000 years ago after yet another group of humans arrived on the scene. The fact that these encounters happened over such a long span of time suggests that Neanderthals and modern humans didn't meet and mate once and then go our separate ways. Instead, they likely lived alongside each other for tens of thousands of years, coming into regular contact and exchanging not just genes, but potentially culture and technology as well. That idea is backed up by studies showing that Neanderthals and other archaic humans weren't confined to Europe and Western Asia. Between 900,000 and 125,000 years ago, different hominin populations with traits that are neither fully modern nor entirely archaic have been identified across East Asia, from northern China to Indonesia. This means that parts of Asia were not just passive recipients of human migration, but active centers of human evolution, which really challenges the idea that all humans can trace their ancestry back to a single origin in Africa. Instead, it suggests that archaic humans spread out of Africa early on and lived for hundreds of thousands of years in both Europe and Asia. During that time, they interacted with other hominin groups who migrated into their home territories, including Homo sapiens. As a result, the gene pool of modern humans would have been enriched with genetic material from these now extinct populations, something scientists can see by comparing DNA from people living today. Everyone outside of Africa has between 1% and 4% of their DNA that can be attributed to Neanderthals. People living in China and other parts of East Asia also have between 5% and 15% of their DNA that comes from an even more mysterious population called the Denisovans. Like the Neanderthals, the Denisovans are an extinct group of archaic humans. We know they existed because a few dozen of their bones and teeth were found in Siberia and China, But despite knowing that they interbred with modern humans, we still don't know much about them. Did they walk upright? How big were their brains? What did they look like? All of these questions remain unanswered, but ancient DNA is giving us clues about where they lived and who they interacted with. Analysis of Denisovan DNA suggests that they lived in East Asia and Oceania between 200,000 and 11,700 years ago, overlapping with at least 4 distinct groups of migrating humans. Some of these encounters happened earlier than previously thought. According to a 2023 paper published in Nature, humans may have left Africa as early as 120,000 years ago, although at this point we don't know if they stayed in Africa or moved elsewhere. Ancient DNA and the ghost populations. Advances in ancient DNA analysis have helped unearth evidence of what some researchers are calling ghost lineages. These are human groups for which no fossils have been found, but whose genetic signatures remain in modern populations. For instance, the world's oldest known genome belongs to a mysterious individual dubbed the Deep, or Hobbit hominin, who lived on the Indonesian island of Flores between 400,000 and 60,000 years ago. Fossils of this species, Homo florensis, were first discovered in 2003, and its small stature and primitive features led many to dismiss it as merely an example of Homo erectus gone awry. But genetic analysis paints a very different picture. The Hobbit genome shows that it was actually a distinct species that split off from the human lineage much earlier than previously thought, around 1 million years ago. And rather than being a side branch on the human family tree, it turns out that Homo florensis was closely related to Homo sapiens. Whoever they are, they had kids with early humans who passed on mitochondrial DNA, the type that's inherited only from mothers, to modern Filipinos. They also interbred with another mysterious population of archaic humans who lived in China and Southeast Asia. To date, there have been 5 or 6 ghost populations identified through ancient DNA. Together, these groups represent an estimated 20% of the genetic material carried by modern humans. Most of these ghost ancestors interbred with early humans in Africa and Asia. But in one puzzling case, a group of archaic humans in Central Asia seems to have absorbed at least 2 distinct migrant populations before disappearing around 24,000 years ago. Their descendants, however, live on in the form of a genetic marker that's common among people living today in India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. A mosaic, not a straight line. All told, these recent discoveries paint a picture of human evolution that is much more complex than the traditional narrative allows. It's a story of archaic humans living not just in Europe and Western Asia, but also East Asia. It's a story of humans leaving Africa in multiple waves and possibly returning to Africa after going elsewhere. It's a story of a mosaic of different human species and populations who sometimes competed but more often interacted and shared knowledge. If the traditional narrative of human origins has been a straight line leading from Africa to worldwide dominance, the new versions of the story are more like a branching bush. At times it looks like a thick forest, with lots of groups splitting off from one another and interacting in complex ways. At others, it resembles an intricate vine or a coral reef, with multiple lineages interwoven into a single beautiful whole. These new stories of human origins are more nuanced, more realistic, and ultimately more hopeful. They remind us that humanity's story began long before the rise of Homo sapiens, and that we owe much of our genetic makeup and technological know-how to other archaic human species. They also reveal that our story is one of diversity, cooperation, and resilience. And if our history is any indication, those are the qualities that will help us face whatever challenges lie ahead. And if you want to learn more about what it means to be human, check out the playlist in the description below. Thanks for watching.